Welcome to this Massachusetts Multicultural Film Festival screening of Your Mother's Comfort, a documentary by Adam Golub, introduced by Nefeli Forni Zervoudaki. I'm Daniel Pope, the director of the 28th season of the MMFF. The theme for the 2021 season is Alliances, presenting an international program of films and media that explore the power and promise of forging alliances with others. Filmmakers and scholars will join us each Wednesday through April 7th for live conversations and Q&As with our online audience. We're fortunate to have with us Nefeli Forni Zervoudaki, who will introduce the film, and then be sure to join us on Wednesday, March 31st at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time for a live conversation and Q&A with the director, Adam Golub, and the central figure in the film, Indianara Siqueira, moderated by Nefeli Forni. Nefeli Forni Zervoudaki is the co-founder of the independent documentary production company Etc. Films. She worked as an assistant director and producer in the audiovisual field before directing her first medium-length documentary, Chiori. Her previous experience as a producer and sales agent includes the feature-length film Los Modernos in Uruguay and the feature-length documentary Joan Fontcuberta, The Remains of Photography in Spain. Together with short films such as Fuimos y Somos in Uruguay and the music video Rest Up in Japan. She is currently a PhD candidate in comparative literature and film studies at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. Welcome, Nefeli.
Thank you. I want to thank you, Daniel, for your extraordinary work and wonderful collaboration, to thank our team of interns who made this edition of the festival possible, Erica McIntyre from the Fine Arts Center for her production magic, and all of our sponsors for their support. I have the pleasure to introduce the filmmaker of Your Mother's Comfort, Adam Golub. Adam is an Israeli-American documentarian, media artist, and videographer based in Brooklyn, New York. He earned his master's from the Columbia School of Journalism in 2013 and was a fellow at the Union Doc Center for Documentary Art the following year. The feature documentary we are proud to present in this edition of the MMFF premiered at Sheffield Doc Fest and won the Grand Jury Award at Outfest, Los Angeles, an honorable mention for features at New Fest, New York, and recently won the Best Feature Film Award at the Women's Voice Now Film Festival. Your Mother's Comfort is a very important and compelling documentary portraying the many struggles of Brazilian transgender activist and militant Indianara Siqueira as she participates in the Socialism and Liberty Party of Brazil, PSOL, during the last presidential election in 2018 and fights to defend the LGBT homeless shelter she founded, Casanem, and the communities it assists to survive. This intimate, heartbreaking, and moving documentary depicts the brutal violence suffered by trans people, Black people, people of color, homeless people, and sex workers in Rio de Janeiro. It is also a hopeful film that shows a myriad of alliances between people fighting to break away from survival, to live, and to make Rio de Janeiro a better place for all trans people. A critical thinker who, ironically, due to the nature of this event, is quite vocal about her negative feelings towards academic institutions, Indianara is an important activist who is inspiring in her work and her commitment to social political change. The documentary includes the horrifying assassination of Marielle Franco, a Black, lesbian, human rights activist, and a candidate for city council for the Socialist Party. To this day, after 3 years, no one has been held accountable for the crime that took away her life, underlining the impunity and indifference of the Brazilian government towards the crimes committed against the LGBTQ and human rights activist communities in this country. Brazil is, in fact, ranked first amongst the world's deadliest countries for trans communities since last year, according to the National Association of Travesties and Trans People, ANTRA. Vulnerable and marginalized, stigmatized and criminalized, 90% of trans women are sex workers due to a lack of access to education and jobs, and more than half of the assaults and murders of trans women take place on the streets. Casanem is an education site and offers shelter to trans women on the streets of Rio. Anti-trans and anti-gender attitudes and violence in Brazil have only worsened since Jair Bolsonaro won the presidency. Only last year, the number of reported cases of assault against trans people and trans feminicide, the systematic killing of travesties and trans women, increased by a terrifying 800%, according to the Gênero e Número organization. 80% of these victims are Black. The film gives a face to this data and to the people who suffer from this abuse and fight against it. Adam Golub's film is about Brazil and specifically Rio de Janeiro and Indianara's work and fight amongst her community. But I would call for us not to make the mistake of believing or comfortably assuming that transphobia and all the other forms of discrimination it entails, LGBT phobia, racism, transphobia, and homophobia, is foreign, or that the severe, tragic, and radically precarious conditions of the trans communities that allow for this systematic and consistent violence and violation of human rights is quote-unquote Brazilian. It is not. Last year in the US, the murders of transgender people surpassed the total of murders of the previous year in just over 6 months. This scourge of violence, like everywhere else in the world, is felt and suffered even more in the Black and Latino communities of the US. I want to invite you to watch this powerful documentary that will hopefully inspire us by making visible a lot of the work that is invisible in Brazil, here, and elsewhere in the world. Your Mother's Comfort is a testimony to the many strong alliances that struggle today to make a better tomorrow. It is not only a question of visibility, but of awareness, and we must become aware that we can only demand justice and inspire change together. I hope you enjoy the film.
Thank you, Nefeli, for this moving introduction to this film. I invite our audience to visit the MMFF website at umass.edu/film/MMFF for information and updates and to see a list of our sponsors. Now, I hope you enjoy Your Mother's Comfort.